Let's begin our journey through the magic of Christmas, a holiday that has woven itself into the fabric of cultures around the world for centuries. Picture, if you will, a winter's evening long ago. The story of Christmas as we know it begins with a date that might surprise you. December 25th wasn't always Christmas Day. In fact, the Bible never mentions the date of Jesus' birth at all. It wasn't until the year 336 AD, during the reign of the Roman Emperor Constantine, that December 25th was first officially recorded as the date of Christmas. The early Christian church chose this date partly to coincide with existing winter solstice festivals, gradually transforming pagan celebrations into Christian holy days. The very word Christmas carries its own quiet history. It comes from the Old English phrase Christ's Mass, which means Christ's Mass. Over centuries of whispered prayers and joyful celebrations, this phrase slowly evolved into the single word we know today. You can almost hear the transformation happening across generations, from Christ's Mass to Christmas, each syllable carrying the weight of tradition. Now, let us travel forward in time to Victorian England, where so many of our modern Christmas traditions took root. It was Prince Albert, the beloved husband of Queen Victoria, who brought the Christmas tree tradition to England from his native Germany in 1840. When a drawing of the royal family celebrating around their decorated tree was published in the Illustrated London News in 1848, it sparked a phenomenon. Suddenly, families across Britain and America wanted their own Christmas trees, transforming what had been a German custom into a global tradition. But the Christmas tree tradition itself stretches back even further. The practice of bringing evergreen trees indoors during winter dates back to ancient times, but the modern Christmas tree as we know it originated in 16th century Germany. Devout Christians brought decorated trees into their homes, and some built Christmas pyramids of wood and decorated them with evergreens and candles. Martin Luther, the Protestant reformer, is credited with being among the first to add lighted candles to a tree, inspired, legend says, by the beauty of stars twinkling through evergreen branches during a winter walk. Speaking of lights, have you ever wondered about those twinkling strands we wrap around our trees and homes? The first electric Christmas lights were created by Thomas Edison's associate, Edward Johnson, in 1882. He hand-wired 80 red, white, and blue light bulbs and strung them together around his Christmas tree in New York City. Before this innovation, people had used dangerous open-flame candles on their trees, which, as you might imagine, led to many house fires. The electric light transformed Christmas from a fire hazard into the brilliant, safe spectacle we enjoy today. As we settle deeper into the Christmas story, let's turn our attention to perhaps the most recognizable figure of the season, Santa Claus. The modern image of Santa Claus that we all know and love, the jolly man in red with a white beard, was largely shaped by a single illustration. In 1931, Coca-Cola commissioned artist Haddon Sundblom to paint Santa Claus for their advertising campaigns. Sundblom's warm, grandfatherly Santa in his red suit became the definitive image, though Santa's red suit actually predates Coca-Cola's ads and was already established in American culture through earlier illustrations and poems. But Santa's story goes back much further. The legend is based on Saint Nicholas of Myra, a 4th century Christian bishop known for his generosity and gift-giving to the poor. Born around 280 AD in what is now Turkey, Saint Nicholas became famous for his kindness, including the story of secretly providing dowries for 3 poor sisters by tossing bags of gold through their window. His feast day, December 6th, is still celebrated in many European countries, where children receive small gifts and treats. The transformation from Saint Nicholas to Santa Claus happened gradually across centuries and continents. Dutch settlers brought their tradition of Sinterklaas to New Amsterdam, what we now call New York, in the 17th century. Over time, the name Sinterklaas became anglicized to Santa Claus, and the stern bishop's robes gradually transformed into the fur-trimmed red suit we recognize today. These 8 facts are just the beginning of our Christmas journey, small threads in a much larger tapestry. As we continue, we'll discover how each tradition, each custom, each beloved element of Christmas carries its own story, stories of faith, family, creativity, and the enduring human desire to bring light and joy into the darkest time of the year. Let us now turn our attention to the songs that fill the air each Christmas season, melodies that have the power to transport us instantly to memories of holidays past. One of the most beloved Christmas carols, Silent Night, has a story as gentle as its melody. On Christmas Eve in 1818, in the small Austrian village of Oberndorf, a crisis arose. The church organ had broken, and Father Joseph Moore needed music for the midnight mass. He brought a poem he had written to his friend Franz Xaver Gruber, the church organist and schoolteacher, and asked him to compose a melody that could be played on guitar. That very evening, Still Nacht was performed for the first time. Today, this simple carol has been translated into over 300 languages and dialects, its peaceful message spreading far beyond that small Austrian church. Another song that has become inseparable from Christmas has a more playful origin. Jingle Bells, contrary to what many believe, was not originally written as a Christmas song at all. Composed by James Lord Pierpont in 1857, it was first titled One Horse Open Sleigh and was intended for Thanksgiving. The song celebrated the sleigh races that were popular in Massachusetts during the winter season. Only later did it become associated with Christmas, perhaps because its wintry imagery and joyful melody seemed to capture the spirit of the holiday season so perfectly. As we drift through these stories, let's pause to consider the Christmas cards that many of us still send and receive. The first commercial Christmas card was created in London in 1843 by Sir Henry Cole, who was simply too busy to write individual Christmas letters to all his friends and acquaintances. He commissioned artist John Calkert Horsley to design a card showing a family celebration and included the message "A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you." Cole printed 1,000 copies and sold those he didn't use for 1 shilling each. This simple solution to a busy man's problem sparked a tradition that continues to this day. Now, let us speak of the Christmas stocking, hanging by the fireplace with care. The tradition has its roots in the legend of Saint Nicholas we mentioned earlier. According to the tale, Saint Nicholas heard of a poor man who had 3 daughters but no money for their dowries. Without dowries, they would be unable to marry and faced a difficult future. Saint Nicholas, wanting to help but knowing the proud father would refuse charity, climbed onto the man's roof and dropped 3 bags of gold coins down the chimney. The coins landed in the stockings the daughters had hung by the fireplace to dry. Ever since, children have hung stockings in hopes that they too might find them filled with gifts. Speaking of chimneys, have you ever wondered why we leave cookies and milk for Santa Claus? This charming tradition has its origins in ancient Norse mythology and later European customs. During the Great Depression in 1930s America, parents encouraged their children to leave treats for Santa as a way of teaching gratitude and the spirit of giving, even during hard times. It was a reminder that even when families had little, they could still share what they had. The tradition stuck, and now children around the world leave out treats, cookies and milk in America, mince pies and sherry in Britain, or rice porridge in Scandinavian countries. Let's turn now to the colors of Christmas. Red and green have become so synonymous with the holiday that we hardly question why. The tradition of these colors has several origins. Holly, with its bright red berries and rich green leaves, was used in winter celebrations long before Christianity. The evergreen represented eternal life, while the red berries symbolized the blood of Christ in Christian tradition. Additionally, medieval mystery plays, which depicted biblical stories for largely illiterate populations, used red apples hung on evergreen trees to represent the Garden of Eden. These colors became deeply embedded in Christmas celebrations, reinforced over centuries of tradition. As the gentle snow of our story continues to fall, consider the poinsettia, that vibrant plant that graces so many homes during the holiday season. This plant is native to Mexico, where it's known as Flor de Nochebuena, meaning flower of the holy night. Legend tells of a young Mexican girl named Pepita who had no gift to offer at the Christmas Eve service. An angel inspired her to gather humble weeds from the roadside, and when she placed them at the church altar, they miraculously bloomed into brilliant red flowers. The plant was introduced to the United States by Joel Roberts Poinsett, the first U.S. ambassador to Mexico in 1828, and it now bears his name. Now, let us drift toward the North Pole itself, or rather, to the many places that claim to be Santa's home. While many associate Santa with the North Pole, this specific location was actually established relatively recently in popular culture. The 1822 poem A Visit from St. Nicholas, more commonly known as 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, made no mention of where Santa lived. It wasn't until the late 19th century that illustrations and stories began placing Santa at the North Pole. Today, several places claim to be Santa's official home, including Rovaniemi in Finnish Lapland, which has been officially designated as Santa's hometown and attracts hundreds of thousands of visitors each year. Finally, as we conclude this segment of our journey, let's reflect on a tradition that brings warmth and light to the darkest nights, the Advent calendar. This beloved countdown to Christmas originated in 19th century Germany, where Protestant families would mark the days of Advent in various ways, lighting candles, making chalk marks on doors, or hanging small religious pictures. The first printed Advent calendar was created in 1902 or 1903 by a Hamburg publisher, though Gerhard Lang is often credited with producing the first one with little doors to open, inspired by a calendar his mother had made for him as a child. What began as a simple religious observance has become a cherished tradition, with each opened door building anticipation for Christmas Day. As our journey through Christmas history deepens, let us explore the treasured traditions that gather us around the table and fill our homes with delicious aromas. The Christmas feast, that grand centerpiece of holiday celebration, has evolved considerably over the centuries. In medieval England, the wealthy would feast on elaborate dishes, but it was roast goose, not turkey, that graced their tables. Turkey didn't become the traditional Christmas bird until the 16th century, when it was introduced to Europe from the Americas. King Henry VIII was reportedly one of the first English monarchs to enjoy turkey for Christmas dinner. The bird's large size made it perfect for feeding large gatherings, and gradually it displaced goose as the centerpiece of the Christmas meal in many English-speaking countries. Now, let's speak of a dessert that has sparked both delight and debate: fruitcake. This dense, preservative cake packed with dried fruits and nuts has been associated with Christmas for centuries. Its origins trace back to ancient Rome, where a mixture of barley, pomegranate seeds, nuts, and raisins was formed into a cake. During the Middle Ages, honey, spices, and preserved fruits were added, creating something closer to what we know today. Fruitcake became particularly associated with Christmas because it could be baked well in advance. The alcohol used in preparation acted as a preservative, and the flavors actually improved with age. In fact, traditional fruitcakes can be kept for years if properly stored and occasionally fed with spirits. Consider now the candy cane, with its distinctive red and white stripes and gentle curve. Legend suggests that in 1670, a choirmaster at Cologne Cathedral in Germany bent sugar sticks into the shape of shepherd's crooks and gave them to children during the long Christmas nativity service to keep them quiet. The white color represented the purity of Jesus, and the shape symbolized the shepherds who visited the infant Christ. The red stripes weren't added until sometime around 1900, possibly representing Christ's sacrifice. Whether or not the legend is entirely accurate, the candy cane has become an iconic symbol of Christmas, with about 1.76 billion of them produced annually in the United States alone. Let us drift now to the tradition of kissing under the mistletoe. This custom has roots that reach back long before Christianity. The Druids believed mistletoe had magical powers because it remained green and bore fruit even in winter. The ancient Norse associated it with Frigga, goddess of love, leading to the tradition that anyone passing beneath it deserved a kiss. Christians later adopted the custom, though its pagan origins made it controversial in some circles. In Victorian England, there was even a proper etiquette. A man could kiss a woman standing under the mistletoe, and to refuse was considered bad luck. For each kiss, one berry was to be plucked from the sprig, and once all the berries were gone, the kissing privileges ceased. As we continue our gentle exploration, let's turn to one of the most magical aspects of Christmas, the legend of Santa's reindeer. The 8 original reindeer, Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, and Blitzen, were first named in the 1823 poem A Visit from St. Nicholas by Clement Clarke Moore. The names Donner and Blitzen come from the German words for thunder and lightning, originally spelled Dunder and Blixen in the first publication. But what about Rudolph? The red-nosed reindeer didn't join the team until much later, created in 1939 by Robert L. May, a copywriter for the Montgomery Ward department store. The store wanted a Christmas story to give away to shoppers, and May's tale of the misfit reindeer who saved Christmas became an instant sensation, later immortalized in song in 1949. Let's speak now of the Christmas wreath, that circular symbol of welcome adorning so many doors. The circular shape of the wreath has no beginning and no end, symbolizing eternal life and the endless love of God in Christian tradition. The ancient Romans celebrated the new year by giving each other branches of evergreens for good luck, and they would shape these into circular wreaths. Christians later adopted this custom, using the evergreen to represent everlasting life through Christ. The Advent wreath, with its 4 candles marking the weeks before Christmas, originated in Germany among Lutherans in the 16th century, though the modern form of the Advent wreath with its specific symbolism wasn't established until the 19th century. Consider now the beautiful tradition of caroling, groups of singers traveling door to door spreading Christmas cheer. This custom evolved from the medieval practice of wassailing, where people would go from house to house offering a drink from their wassail bowl and singing in exchange for gifts or money. The word wassail comes from the Old English phrase ways hail, meaning be in good health. Originally, wassailers would visit wealthy neighbors and sing blessings in exchange for food and drink. This evolved into the more familiar Christmas caroling tradition, where groups sing religious and festive songs to celebrate the season and spread joy to their community. As our story unfolds, we encounter the Nutcracker, that beloved Christmas ballet that has become as much a part of the season as decorated trees and stockings. This enchanting performance premiered in St. Petersburg, Russia, in 1892, with music composed by Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky and choreography by Marius Petipa and Lev Ivanov. However, the first performance was actually considered a disappointment by critics and audiences alike. It wasn't until the ballet was brought to America in the 1940s and 1950s that it truly flourished. Today, the Nutcracker is performed by countless ballet companies worldwide during the Christmas season, with many companies depending on ticket sales from these performances to fund their entire year's operations. Finally, as this segment of our journey draws to a close, let us reflect on Boxing Day, celebrated on December 26th in many countries. Contrary to what some might think, the name has nothing to do with the sport of boxing or returning unwanted gifts in boxes. Instead, the tradition dates back to the Middle Ages in Britain. On the day after Christmas, churches would open their alms boxes, containers where people place donations throughout the year, and distribute the contents to the poor. Wealthy families would also give boxes containing gifts, money, and sometimes leftover food to their servants and tradespeople who had to work on Christmas Day. Today, Boxing Day is a public holiday in many Commonwealth nations, a day for relaxation, sporting events, and, in more modern times, shopping sales. As we journey deeper into the heart of Christmas traditions, let us explore the stories and customs that have shaped how different corners of the world celebrate this magical season. Travel with me now to the charming figure of the Christmas pickle, a tradition that has puzzled and delighted many. According to the custom, a pickle-shaped ornament is hidden deep within the branches of the Christmas tree, and the first child to find it on Christmas morning receives an extra present or good fortune for the coming year. While this tradition is often said to be an old German custom, historians have found little evidence of it actually being practiced in Germany. The true origin remains something of a mystery, though it appears to have emerged in the American Midwest in the late 1800s, possibly created by German immigrants or perhaps by a clever ornament salesman. Regardless of its murky origins, the tradition has found a beloved place in many American homes. Let us now consider the Yule log, a tradition that warms both hearth and heart. In medieval times, families would select a massive log, often from an oak tree, and burn it in the fireplace throughout the 12 days of Christmas. The log had to be large enough to burn slowly, and it was considered good luck to keep a piece of it to kindle the next year's log. People believed the Yule log's ashes had protective powers and would scatter them around their property to ward off evil. In some regions, the saved piece would be placed under beds to protect the house from lightning and fire. Today, while few homes have fireplaces large enough for traditional Yule logs, the tradition lives on in the delicious Yule log cake, the bûche de Noël, created to look like a wooden log, complete with bark-like frosting. As the winter wind carries our story forward, let's speak of the Christmas spider and its shimmering legend. According to an Eastern European folktale, a poor widow and her children carefully tended a small Christmas tree grown from a pine cone they had found. On Christmas Eve, spiders in the house covered the tree with their webs. When the Christ child came to bless the house, he transformed the cobwebs into silver and gold, and the family awoke to a tree glittering with beauty. This legend explains why in some countries, particularly in Ukraine, Poland, and Germany, decorative spider ornaments and tinsel are placed on Christmas trees. The tinsel itself is meant to represent those magical transformed cobwebs, catching and reflecting the light just as the legend describes. Now, let us turn to the beloved Christmas movie tradition. While holiday films have been made since the early days of cinema, one film stands above all others as a true Christmas classic. It's a Wonderful Life, directed by Frank Capra and starring James Stewart, was released in 1946. Interestingly, the film was initially considered a box office disappointment and received mixed reviews. It wasn't until the 1970s, when its copyright lapsed and television stations could air it for free, that it became the beloved Christmas staple it is today. The repeated television broadcasts introduced it to new generations, and it gradually became recognized as one of the greatest American films ever made, inseparable from the Christmas season. Let's drift now to the custom of Christmas stockings filled with oranges. For many families, finding an orange in the toe of a Christmas stocking is a cherished tradition, but few know its poignant origin. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, oranges were exotic, expensive fruits that had to be imported from distant lands like Spain or North Africa. For many families, especially during the Great Depression, an orange was a rare and precious gift. Receiving one at Christmas was truly special, a luxury that symbolized both the sweetness of the season and the sacrifice parents made to provide small joys for their children. Though oranges are now readily available year-round, the tradition persists as a reminder of simpler times and the gift of gratitude. Consider now the Christmas cracker, that festive table favour popular in Britain and Commonwealth countries. These decorated paper tubes that crack when pulled apart were invented by a London confectioner named Tom Smith in 1847. Smith was inspired by French bonbons wrapped in paper with a twist at each end. After visiting Paris, he wanted to create something similar but more exciting. While pondering by his fireplace one evening, he heard the crackle of the logs and was inspired to create a wrapper that would make a snapping sound when opened. He added the paper crown, a small gift, and a motto or joke, and the Christmas cracker was born. Today, approximately 150 million Christmas crackers are produced and pulled each year. As our journey continues through the tapestry of Christmas traditions, let's explore the Christmas markets that have become destinations in their own right. The Christkindlmarkt, or Christ Child Market, is a beloved tradition with roots stretching back to the late Middle Ages in German-speaking parts of Europe. The oldest recorded Christmas market, the Dresden Striezelmarkt, dates back to 1434. These markets originally served a practical purpose, providing people with meat, winter supplies, and festive foods before the cold winter set in. Today, Christmas markets have evolved into magical winter wonderlands, featuring handcrafted gifts, seasonal treats, mulled wine, and the warm glow of thousands of lights. They've spread far beyond Germany, with cities around the world now hosting their own versions of these enchanting markets. Let us speak now of the Christmas Eve tradition of leaving carrots for Santa's reindeer. While the cookies and milk are for Santa himself, children in many countries leave carrots, and sometimes water or hay, for the hard-working reindeer who pull his sleigh around the world. This thoughtful tradition teaches children to think not only of Santa but of all who help make Christmas possible. In some countries, the tradition varies, Australian children might leave out carrots and beer, while Irish children traditionally leave Guinness or milk along with Christmas pudding. The underlying sentiment remains the same: gratitude and care for those who bring Christmas magic to life. Finally, as this segment draws to a close, let us reflect on the tradition of Christmas lights displays that transform neighborhoods into wonderlands. While we mentioned earlier that the first electric Christmas lights appeared in 1882, the tradition of elaborate outdoor displays began much later. The practice gained popularity in the United States after World War II, when increased prosperity and mass-produced light sets made outdoor decorating accessible to average families. The tradition really exploded in the 1950s and 1960s, with families competing to create the most dazzling displays. Today, some homes feature synchronized light shows set to music, with thousands or even hundreds of thousands of bulbs. The Guinness World Record for the most lights on a residential property stands at over 600,000 bulbs, a far cry from those original 80 bulbs Thomas Edison's colleagues strung together. As we reach the midpoint of our Christmas journey, let us explore the gifts, games, and cherished moments that make this season so memorable. Consider for a moment the 12 days of Christmas, a phrase many of us know from the famous carol. But when exactly are these 12 days? Contrary to popular belief, they don't lead up to Christmas, they follow it. The 12 days of Christmas begin on December 25th and end on January 5th, culminating in the celebration of Epiphany on January 6th. Epiphany commemorates the visit of the three wise men to the infant Jesus, and in many Christian traditions, this is when the Christmas season officially ends. In some cultures, Epiphany, not Christmas Day, is when children receive their gifts, delivered by the three kings rather than Santa Claus. This extended celebration meant that historically, Christmas festivities lasted nearly 2 weeks, a far cry from our modern tendency to rush back to normal life the day after Christmas. Now, let's speak of gingerbread, that spicy sweet treat so closely associated with Christmas. Gingerbread has been baked in Europe since the 11th century, brought back from the Middle East during the Crusades. However, it was German immigrants who brought the tradition of gingerbread houses to America. The tradition of building elaborate gingerbread structures was inspired by the Brothers Grimm fairy tale Hansel and Gretel, published in 1812, which featured a house made entirely of bread, cake, and sugar. The story captured imaginations, and German bakers began creating intricate gingerbread houses, a tradition that spread throughout Europe and eventually worldwide. Today, some gingerbread houses are architectural marvels, with competitions held annually to showcase the most creative and elaborate designs. Let us drift now to the tradition of the nativity scene, those peaceful arrangements depicting the birth of Jesus. The first nativity scene, or creche, is credited to Saint Francis of Assisi, who in 1223 created a live nativity in a cave in Greccio, Italy. Francis wanted to help people visualize the humble circumstances of Christ's birth and to emphasize the poverty into which Jesus was born. He used real people and animals to recreate the scene, and the display was so powerful that it began a tradition that spread throughout the Christian world. Today, nativity scenes range from simple figurines to elaborate displays, and some cities host live nativity scenes with actors and animals, carrying on Saint Francis's vision from 8 centuries ago. As winter's tale continues, let's explore the tradition of the Christmas ham. While turkey has become synonymous with Christmas in many English-speaking countries, ham holds an equally cherished place on holiday tables. The tradition of eating ham at Christmas has practical and symbolic roots. In the days before refrigeration, pigs were typically slaughtered in late fall, and the meat was cured over several weeks, timing that made it perfect for Christmas feasts. Additionally, in pagan times, the boar was a symbol of prosperity and good fortune. Early Christians adopted the practice, and ham became a traditional centerpiece for Christmas celebrations. The practice of glazing ham with honey, spices, or fruit preserves developed over centuries, transforming a practical preservation method into a culinary art. Consider now the legend of Krampus, a figure that provides a darker counterpoint to Saint Nicholas's kindness. In Alpine folklore, particularly in Austria, Bavaria, and parts of Eastern Europe, Krampus is a horned, demon-like creature who punishes naughty children during the Christmas season. While Saint Nicholas rewards good children, Krampus arrives on the night of December 5th, Krampusnacht, to frighten badly behaved children. He's depicted with chains, bells, and a bundle of birch branches for swatting. The tradition dates back to pre-Christian Alpine culture, and despite various attempts to suppress it over the centuries, Krampus celebrations have experienced a revival in recent decades, with festivals and parades featuring people dressed as the fearsome creature. Let us turn now to a more tender tradition, the Christmas letter. While sending Christmas cards became popular in the Victorian era, the tradition of including a year-end letter updating friends and family on one's life became particularly popular in mid-20th century America. These letters served a practical purpose before social media and frequent long-distance communication. They allowed families to share major life events, children's accomplishments, travels, and family news with distant relatives and friends all at once. Today, while some view the Christmas letter with amusement or even gentle mockery, for many families it remains a cherished tradition, a yearly snapshot capturing the joys, challenges, and milestones that made each year unique. As our story winds through the history of Christmas, we encounter the tradition of Christmas in July, a peculiar celebration that originated in the Southern Hemisphere. For countries like Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa, Christmas falls during the heat of summer, making it difficult to embrace many traditional winter-themed celebrations. In the 1980s, the concept of Christmas in July began gaining popularity, allowing people to experience a more traditional winter Christmas complete with roaring fires, hot cocoa, and warm meals. Some summer camps in the Northern Hemisphere also adopted the tradition as a fun midsummer activity. Interestingly, the phrase Christmas in July first appeared in a 1940 film of the same name, though the movie's plot had nothing to do with celebrating Christmas during summer. Let's speak now of eggnog, that rich, creamy beverage that divides people into devoted fans and firm skeptics. This holiday drink has roots in medieval Britain, where a hot drink called posset made from milk, eggs, and ale or wine was popular. The drink evolved, and when it came to America, rum became the spirit of choice, as it was cheaper and more readily available than brandy. The name eggnog might derive from noggin, a small wooden cup used to serve alcohol, or possibly from grog, a term for strong beer. George Washington was famous for his own eggnog recipe, which included rye whiskey, rum, and sherry. Eggnog was particularly popular in America because while fresh milk and eggs were often scarce in winter in Britain, they were more abundant on American farms. Consider now the tradition of attending a Christmas Eve church service, particularly the candlelight service that has become meaningful for many. The tradition of holding special services on Christmas Eve dates back to the early centuries of Christianity, but the Midnight Mass, celebrating Christ's birth at the stroke of midnight, became particularly significant in medieval Europe. The candlelight service, where congregants hold lit candles while singing carols, became widespread in Protestant churches during the 18th and 19th centuries. The symbolism is powerful, individual flames coming together to create a warm glow, representing the light of Christ entering a dark world, and the community of believers united in celebration. For many families, regardless of how often they attend church throughout the year, Christmas Eve services remain a sacred tradition. Finally, as we conclude this segment of our journey, let us reflect on the tradition of making Christmas wishes or New Year's resolutions. While New Year's resolutions as we know them are more commonly associated with January 1st, the Christmas season has long been a time for reflection and renewal. The ancient Babylonians made promises to their gods at the start of each year, and the Romans began each year with resolutions to the god Janus. For Christians, the Christmas season naturally invites reflection on gratitude, generosity, and renewal. The quiet moment between Christmas and New Year provides a natural pause, a sacred space between the celebration of what has been and the hope for what will be. This period invites us to consider not just what we want to achieve, but who we want to become. As we venture into the second half of our Christmas story, let us explore the global tapestry of traditions that make this season so rich and varied across cultures and continents. Travel with me now to Japan, where Christmas has taken on a uniquely delightful form. In the 1970s, the American fast food chain KFC launched a marketing campaign in Japan called Kurisumisu Niwa Kentucky, or Kentucky for Christmas. The campaign was so successful that eating KFC chicken on Christmas Eve became a national tradition. Today, millions of Japanese families pre-order their Christmas KFC meals weeks in advance, and the restaurants are packed on Christmas Eve. This tradition arose partly because Christmas is not a national holiday in Japan, where only about 1% of the population is Christian, so it evolved as more of a commercial celebration. The image of Colonel Sanders in a Santa suit has become an iconic sight in Japanese cities during December. Let us now speak of the Christmas sweater, that garment that has evolved from embarrassing gift to ironic fashion statement. The tradition of wearing festive knitted sweaters during the holidays became popular in the 1950s, when mass-produced, affordable knitting patterns became widely available. These sweaters often featured reindeer, snowflakes, Christmas trees, and other holiday motifs. By the 1980s, they had become somewhat of a cliché, often given by well-meaning relatives. However, in the early 2000s, the ugly Christmas sweater party emerged as a phenomenon, where people would compete to wear the most garish, over-the-top holiday sweater they could find. What was once considered tacky became celebrated, and now ugly Christmas sweaters are big business, with retailers selling deliberately outrageous designs. Consider now the tradition of La Befana in Italy, a beloved figure who brings gifts to children on the night of January 5th, the eve of Epiphany. According to legend, La Befana was an old woman who was visited by the three wise men on their way to see baby Jesus. They invited her to come with them, but she was too busy with her housework and declined. Later, regretting her decision, she set out to find them but never did. Now, she flies on her broomstick each year on the eve of Epiphany, leaving gifts for good children and lumps of coal, now typically black candy, for naughty ones, still searching for the Christ child. Italian children hang stockings for La Befana, and her story adds an extra layer of magic to the Italian Christmas season. As our journey continues, let's explore the tradition of the Christmas pyramid, a beautiful wooden structure from the Urge region of Germany. These pyramids, called Weihnachtspyramide, are multi-tiered carousel-like structures decorated with carved figures, candles, and nativity scenes. The candle's heat causes a propeller at the top to spin, rotating the tiers and creating a mesmerizing display. These pyramids date back to the Middle Ages, possibly originating as a substitute for Christmas trees when wood was scarce. Miners in the Urge Mountains, known for their woodcraft, developed increasingly elaborate versions. Today, German Christmas markets often feature enormous pyramids that tower over the crowds, some reaching heights of several stories, their gentle rotation a reminder of centuries-old craftsmanship. Let us turn now to the tradition of leaving windows open on Christmas Eve, a custom practiced in Ireland and some other Celtic regions. According to Irish tradition, families would leave a candle burning in the window and the door unlocked on Christmas Eve to symbolically welcome Mary and Joseph, offering them the shelter that was denied to them in Bethlehem. This tradition represented hospitality and openness to strangers, embodying the spirit of Christmas charity. In some families, the youngest child of the household would light the candle, and only someone named Mary could extinguish it. Though less common now, this tradition speaks to a time when communities were more tightly knit and welcoming strangers was both a spiritual practice and a social necessity. Consider now the Christmas pickle's less-known companion, the Christmas spider web. In Ukraine, a traditional Christmas decoration involves covering parts of the tree with artificial spider webs, a tradition connected to the legend we mentioned earlier about the poor widow's tree. This custom is called pavuchki, meaning little spiders. Ukrainians also have a tradition of hiding a spider ornament in the tree for good luck, similar to the American Christmas pickle tradition. The person who finds the spider can expect good fortune in the coming year. This tradition beautifully transforms what many consider household pests into symbols of blessing and prosperity. Let us speak now of the Norwegian tradition of hiding all brooms on Christmas Eve. According to Norwegian folklore, Christmas Eve is when witches and evil spirits come out to search for brooms to ride on. To prevent their brooms from being stolen, Norwegians traditionally hide all their brooms before going to bed on Christmas Eve. In some regions, men would also fire shots into the air to frighten away the spirits. While few Norwegians today literally believe in Christmas Eve witches, many families continue the tradition of hiding brooms as a playful nod to their folklore heritage, adding a touch of whimsy and connection to ancestral beliefs to their Christmas celebrations. As our story unfolds across the world, we discover the Venezuelan tradition of roller skating to early morning Christmas Mass. In Caracas, the capital city, it's traditional for people to roller skate to church services during the days leading up to Christmas, particularly on the mornings from December 16th through 24th. The tradition has become so popular that many streets in the city are closed to traffic early on these mornings to allow safe passage for skaters. After Mass, families enjoy a traditional breakfast together. The origin of this unique tradition is unclear, but it has become such an integral part of Venezuelan Christmas culture that locals consider it as essential to their celebration as any other Christmas tradition. Consider now the Icelandic tradition of the Yule cat, or Jólakatrin, a massive, vicious cat from folklore that roams the snowy countryside at Christmas. According to legend, the Yule cat would eat anyone who didn't receive new clothes before Christmas Eve. This frightening tale was used as an incentive for farmhands to finish processing the autumn wool before Christmas. Those who worked hard would be rewarded with new clothing and thus spared from the Yule cat. Today, the tradition has evolved into families giving each other at least one article of clothing for Christmas. The Yule cat has become part of Iceland's unique Christmas culture, often appearing alongside the Yule lads, 13 troll-like figures who visit children in the 13 nights before Christmas. Finally, as this segment draws to a close, let's reflect on the tradition of Christmas windows in department stores. This tradition began in the mid-19th century when merchants discovered that elaborate window displays could attract customers during the holiday shopping season. Macy's in New York created its first animated Christmas windows in 1874, featuring a porcelain doll collection. By the early 20th century, department store Christmas windows had become elaborate spectacles, featuring intricate mechanical displays, elaborate scenes, and later, sophisticated animatronics. Today, stores like Macy's, Bloomingdale's, Saks Fifth Avenue, and London Selfridges create windows that are destinations in themselves, with people traveling from around the world to see these magical displays. The tradition has become a form of public art, offering free entertainment and wonder to all who pass by, rich and poor alike. As we journey deeper into the world's Christmas traditions, let us explore the foods, festivities, and fascinating customs that connect us across time and distance. Let us begin with the tradition of the Christmas pudding, that dense, dark dessert so beloved in Britain. Also known as plum pudding, though it contains no plums, this rich concoction of dried fruits, suet, spices, and often a generous splash of brandy has been a Christmas staple since medieval times. The pudding is traditionally made on Stir-Up Sunday, the last Sunday before Advent, which falls in late November. Each family member stirs the mixture from east to west, in honor of the three wise men, and makes a wish. The tradition holds that the pudding should contain 13 ingredients, representing Christ and his 12 apostles. Perhaps most dramatic is the presentation. The pudding is doused with brandy and set alight at the table, arriving in a spectacular blaze of blue flames, symbolizing the Passion of Christ. Consider now the Swedish tradition of Saint Lucia Day, celebrated on December 13th. This celebration honors Saint Lucia, a young Christian martyr from Sicily, though the Swedish tradition has evolved into something uniquely Scandinavian. On the morning of December 13th, the eldest daughter in the family traditionally dresses in a white gown with a red sash and wears a crown of candles on her head. She serves her family saffron buns called lussekatter and coffee in bed. Schools and communities hold Lucia processions, with a chosen girl leading a procession of attendants, all singing traditional Lucia songs. This tradition brings light into the darkest time of the year, as December 13th was once believed to be the winter solstice according to the old Julian calendar. Let us speak now of the Mexican tradition of Las Posadas, a 9-day celebration leading up to Christmas. Beginning on December 16th and continuing through Christmas Eve, Las Posadas reenacts Mary and Joseph's search for lodging in Bethlehem. Each night, a procession of children and adults carrying candles visit different homes in the neighborhood, singing traditional songs and asking for shelter. At the first few houses, they are turned away, but eventually they are joyfully welcomed into a home where the celebration continues with food, pinatas, and festivities. The word posada means inn or shelter, and this beautiful tradition transforms an entire community into participants in the nativity story, emphasizing themes of hospitality, perseverance, and welcome. As our story continues, let's explore the tradition of mince pies, those small, sweet pastries filled with spiced fruit that are ubiquitous in Britain during Christmas. Despite their name, modern mince pies contain no meat, though historically they did contain minced meat along with fruits and spices. These pies date back to the 13th century when Crusaders returned from the Holy Land with Middle Eastern recipes combining meats, fruits, and spices. The rectangular shape of early mince pies was meant to represent Jesus' manger, and they were often topped with a pastry baby Jesus. The tradition holds that if you eat one mince pie on each of the 12 days of Christmas in 12 different houses, you'll have good luck for the coming year, though this might be challenging to accomplish in practice. Consider now the tradition of Sancta Lucia cats, or lussekatter, those golden saffron buns shaped like curled cats or the letter S that are eaten in Sweden during the Christmas season, particularly on St. Lucia Day. The name means Lucia cats, and they're flavored with saffron, which gives them their distinctive yellow color and precious flavor. Saffron, being one of the world's most expensive spices, made these buns special treats reserved for celebrations. The buns are typically dotted with raisins and have a subtle, aromatic flavor. The tradition of baking these buns spread throughout Scandinavia, and the recipe has been passed down through generations, each family adding their own subtle variations to the traditional formula. Let us turn now to the custom of Christmas stamps, a tradition that began in Denmark in 1904. A postal worker named Einar Holbold proposed creating special Christmas stamps, with the proceeds going to charity. The first Danish Christmas seals, as they were called, raised money for a children's tuberculosis hospital. The idea spread rapidly around the world, and today many countries issue special Christmas stamps. These stamps often feature religious imagery, winter scenes, or traditional Christmas symbols. For many collectors and families, choosing and using Christmas stamps for holiday cards has become a small but meaningful tradition, combining the practical act of mailing cards with charitable giving and festive decoration. As we drift through the history of celebration, let's speak of the tradition of Christmas in Bethlehem, the very birthplace of the holiday's central story. Every year, thousands of pilgrims travel to Bethlehem to celebrate Christmas at the Church of the Nativity, built over the site traditionally believed to be Jesus' birthplace. The church, one of the oldest continuously operating churches in the world, hosts multiple Christmas celebrations because different Christian denominations celebrate on different dates: December 25th for Catholics and Protestants, January 7th for Orthodox Christians following the Julian calendar, and January 19th for Armenian Orthodox Christians. On Christmas Eve, the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem processes from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, welcomed by crowds and celebrations. Manger Square fills with people from around the world, united in celebration at the place where it all began. Consider now the Filipino tradition of the Giant Lantern Festival, or Ligligan Porul Sampanandu. The Philippines boasts one of the longest Christmas seasons in the world, beginning as early as September and lasting until January. In the city of San Fernando, Pampanga, known as the Christmas capital of the Philippines, a spectacular competition takes place each December. Giant lanterns, called paroles, reaching up to 20 feet in diameter, are constructed with thousands of lights that create intricate, synchronized patterns. What began as simple lanterns in the 1930s has evolved into an incredible display of engineering and artistry, with each barangay, neighborhood, competing to create the most stunning display. The tradition combines Spanish colonial influence, indigenous craftsmanship, and modern technology into a uniquely Filipino celebration. Let us now explore the tradition of the Christmas tree ship, a unique piece of Chicago history. From the 1880s until 1912, Captain Herman Schoonman would sail a ship loaded with Christmas trees from Michigan's Upper Peninsula to Chicago, selling them from the ship docked on the Chicago River. He became known as Captain Santa, providing affordable trees to Chicago families. Tragically, in 1912, his ship, the Rouse Simmons, disappeared in a Lake Michigan storm with all hands lost. The tradition lived on through his family for many years. In recent decades, the tradition has been revived symbolically, with the Coast Guard and local organizations bringing a Christmas tree ship to Chicago each year, honoring Captain Schoonman's memory and the maritime heritage of Christmas tree delivery. Finally, as this segment concludes, let's reflect on the tradition of the Christmas truce of 1914. During World War I, on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, something remarkable happened along the Western Front. British and German soldiers, who had been locked in brutal trench warfare, spontaneously ceased fighting. They sang carols to each other across no man's land, exchanged gifts of cigarettes and food, and in many places, climbed out of their trenches to meet in the middle. They buried their dead, played football matches, and shared photographs of loved ones back home. Officers tried to prevent these fraternizations, knowing the war must continue, and such widespread truces never happened again. Yet for one magical moment, the spirit of Christmas proved stronger than the machinery of war, reminding us of our shared humanity even in the darkest of times. As we near the final chapters of our Christmas journey, let us explore the symbols, sounds, and surprising stories that continue to shape how we celebrate this beloved season. Let us begin with the poinsettia's journey to becoming a Christmas symbol. While we spoke earlier of the Mexican legend, the plant's association with Christmas was cemented by the Eck family of Southern California. In the early 20th century, Albert Eck and his son Paul began growing poinsettias commercially and developed techniques to make them bloom in time for Christmas. More remarkably, the Eck family discovered and kept secret a grafting technique that made poinsettias branch and create fuller, more attractive plants. For decades, they held a near monopoly on poinsettia production. Today, poinsettias are the best-selling potted plant in the United States, with approximately 70 million sold each year, almost exclusively during the Christmas season. December 12th has even been designated as National Poinsettia Day in honor of Joel Poinsettia's death date. Consider now the tradition of Advent calendars with chocolate. While we discussed the origin of Advent calendars earlier, the chocolate-filled versions we know today didn't appear until much later. In the 1950s, a German entrepreneur named Richard Selmer began mass-producing Advent calendars with pictures behind each door. The chocolate calendar was invented in 1958 by another German company. Today, Advent calendars have evolved far beyond chocolate. There are calendars filled with toys, beauty products, wine, cheese, tea, and even luxury items like jewelry. What began as a simple religious observance has become a thriving industry, with some high-end Advent calendars costing hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Let us speak now of the White Elephant gift exchange, that popular party game with mysterious origins. Also known as Yankee Swap or Dirty Santa, this gift exchange involves participants bringing wrapped gifts of similar value. Players draw numbers, and in turn, they either select a new gift or steal an already opened one from someone else. The term white elephant refers to a possession that's more trouble than it's worth, a phrase that comes from the legend of the king of Siam, who would gift rare white elephants to courtiers he disliked. While the animals were sacred and couldn't be put to work, they were expensive to maintain, financially ruining their recipients. The Christmas game embraces this spirit with deliberately impractical or humorous gifts, though many exchanges have evolved to include genuinely desirable items. As our story continues through tradition, let's explore the origins of Auld Lang Syne, that song we sing at the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve. The poem was written by Scottish poet Robert Burns in 1788, though he claimed it was based on an older folk song. The title translates roughly to Old Long Since, or more loosely, Days Gone By or For Old Time's Sake. The melody is a Scottish folk tune. But how did a Scottish poem become the universal song of New Year's? The credit goes largely to Guy Lombardo and his Royal Canadians Orchestra, who played it at a New Year's Eve party broadcast on radio in 1929 and continued the tradition annually on television. The song's themes of friendship, remembrance, and the passage of time made it perfect for the moment when one year becomes another. Consider now the tradition of Christmas stockings hung in a row, which inspired one of the most famous lines in Christmas literature. Clement Clarke Moore's 1823 poem A Visit from St. Nicholas contains the line, "The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there." Before this poem, the practice of hanging stockings was known but not widespread in America. Moore's poem helped popularize numerous Christmas traditions, including the image of Santa as a jolly, rotund figure arriving via chimney, and the names of his reindeer. Interestingly, Moore initially published the poem anonymously, and for years there was debate about whether he or another writer named Henry Livingston Jr. was the true author, though scholarly consensus now attributes it to Moore. Let us turn now to the tradition of Christmas bonus payments, a practice that has become expected in many industries. The custom of giving employees extra compensation at year's end has various origins. In Victorian England, wealthy families would give their servants Christmas boxes containing gifts, money, and leftover food. In America, the practice of Christmas bonuses became widespread in the early 20th century as companies sought to reward employees and share year-end profits. The tradition peaked in the mid-20th century when bonuses were more or less guaranteed. Today, while some industries still offer substantial Christmas bonuses, the practice has become less universal, replaced in some cases by year-end performance bonuses or other forms of compensation. Still, for many workers, the Christmas bonus remains an anticipated and cherished tradition. As we drift through the Christmas season, let's speak of the Radio City Christmas Spectacular and the world-famous rockets. This iconic show began in 1933 at Radio City Music Hall in New York City, just 1 year after the venue opened. The show was created to boost attendance during the Great Depression, offering families affordable entertainment during difficult times. The Rockets, known for their precision high kicks and intricate choreography, became the show's centerpiece. Their signature parade of the Wooden Soldiers number, where dancers fall like dominoes, has been performed in nearly every show since 1933. Today, the Radio City Christmas Spectacular runs from November through early January, with multiple shows daily, and has been seen by more than 75 million people over its 9-decade history. Consider now the tradition of the Christmas carp, particularly significant in Central and Eastern European countries like Poland, Czech Republic, and Slovakia. In these nations, carp is the traditional Christmas Eve dinner, often served with potato salad. The tradition has practical roots. The Catholic Church's requirement to abstain from meat on Christmas Eve meant fish was the acceptable alternative, and carp could be raised in local ponds and kept alive until needed. In some families, the carp is bought live a few days before Christmas and kept swimming in the bathtub until it's time to prepare it. Children sometimes become attached to the fish, and in modern times, some families have started a counter-tradition of buying the carp and then releasing it into a river rather than eating it, choosing mercy over tradition. Let us explore now the Icelandic tradition of jólabókaflóð, or the Christmas book flood. This wonderful tradition involves giving books as presents on Christmas Eve and then spending the evening reading. The tradition began during World War II when paper was one of the few things not rationed in Iceland. Books became the gift of choice, and publishers began releasing new titles in the months before Christmas. Today, the majority of books in Iceland are still sold between September and December. On Christmas Eve, Icelanders open their presents and settle in for a cozy evening of reading, often with chocolate, as another Icelandic tradition is to give books along with chocolate. In a world increasingly dominated by digital distractions, this tradition of quiet reading on Christmas Eve feels both countercultural and deeply appealing. Finally, as this segment draws to a close, let's reflect on the tradition of the Christmas pickle ornament competition. Beyond the hiding of the pickle we discussed earlier, there's actually a friendly international rivalry around this tradition. The town of Berrien Springs, Michigan, hosts an annual Christmas pickle festival, complete with a pickle parade and various pickle-themed competitions. The village claims to be the Christmas pickle capital of the world. Meanwhile, the German town of Laudenbach has embraced the legend of the Christmas pickle, despite its questionable German origins, and also celebrates the tradition. This playful international connection, based on a tradition of uncertain origin, reminds us that Christmas customs continue to evolve, spread, and create connections in unexpected ways. As we enter the final chapters of our Christmas journey, let us explore the enduring legacies, curious customs, and timeless truths that make this season perpetually new, even as it honors ancient traditions. Let us begin with the fascinating history of Christmas trees at the White House. The tradition of a White House Christmas tree began in 1889 under President Benjamin Harrison, but it was President Calvin Coolidge who started the national Christmas tree lighting ceremony on the White House ellipse in 1923. However, not all presidents embraced the tradition. Theodore Roosevelt, an ardent conservationist, actually banned Christmas trees from the White House between 1902 and 1904, concerned about the environmental impact of cutting down trees. His sons, Archie and Quentin, rebelled by sneaking a small tree into a closet, much to their father's eventual amusement. Today, the national Christmas tree lighting is a major event, broadcast nationally, with the president traditionally flipping the switch to illuminate the tree while thousands gather to celebrate. Consider now the tradition of sending Christmas cards to American military service members through organizations like Operation Gratitude and the Red Cross. This practice gained particular significance during World War II, when families and communities would organize massive card-writing campaigns to boost morale among troops overseas. The tradition continues today, with millions of cards sent annually to deployed service members, veterans, and first responders. These cards, often from complete strangers, carry messages of gratitude, hope, and connection. Many service members have shared that receiving these cards during deployment provided comfort during difficult times, serving as tangible reminders that they were not forgotten. It's a simple gesture that bridges the distance between home and the front lines. Let us speak now of the tradition of Christmas comedy specials on television. While holiday specials have existed since the early days of television, comedy specials became a staple in the 1960s and 1970s. A Charlie Brown Christmas, which premiered in 1965, was initially dismissed by CBS executives who thought its slow pace, jazz soundtrack, and religious themes wouldn't work. It became one of the most beloved Christmas specials of all time, winning an Emmy and airing annually for nearly 6 decades. The special was revolutionary for featuring real children's voices rather than adult actors, and for directly addressing the commercialization of Christmas through Charlie Brown's search for the true meaning of the holiday. Its famous final scene, where Linus recites the nativity story from the Gospel of Luke, remains one of television's most memorable Christmas moments. As our story unfolds, let's explore the tradition of Christmas at Disneyland and Disney World. Walt Disney himself loved Christmas, and the first Christmas celebration at Disneyland took place in 1955, just months after the park opened. However, the elaborate Christmas decorations we associate with Disney parks today didn't begin until 1956, when a 50-foot Christmas tree was erected in Town Square. Over the decades, Disney Christmas celebrations have grown into spectacular events featuring millions of lights, elaborate parades, artificial snow on Main Street, USA, and special holiday versions of popular attractions. The parks now begin their Christmas celebrations in early November and continue through early January. For many families, a Disney Christmas has become a cherished tradition, combining the magic of the holidays with the fantasy of Disney. An entirely new paradigm of computing looms on the horizon. Quantum computing and its intersection with AI could be revolutionary. Classical computers process information as bits that are either 0 or 1. Quantum computers use quantum bits, or qubits, which can exist in superposition, effectively being 0 and 1 simultaneously until measured. This allows quantum computers to explore many possibilities in parallel, potentially solving certain problems exponentially faster than classical computers. For AI, quantum computing could accelerate the most computationally intensive tasks, training massive neural networks, optimizing complex systems, searching vast solution spaces. Some researchers envision quantum machine learning algorithms that could process information in fundamentally new ways, potentially discovering patterns that classical AI would miss. However, quantum computers are still in early stages of development. Current quantum systems are small, error-prone, and work only in carefully controlled conditions. The marriage of quantum computing and AI remains mostly theoretical, but research is accelerating. Companies like IBM, Google, and startups worldwide are building increasingly capable quantum systems. Google claimed quantum supremacy in 2019, demonstrating a calculation that would be impractical for classical computers. As these systems mature, they may unlock new frontiers in AI capabilities, though significant technical hurdles remain before quantum AI becomes practical reality. We've entered an era where seeing is no longer believing. AI can now generate remarkably realistic fake videos, known as deepfakes, where someone appears to say or do things they never actually did. The technology uses generative adversarial networks and other deep learning techniques to swap faces, manipulate expressions, and synthesize speech that matches a person's voice. Early deepfakes were crude and detectable, but the technology improves constantly. The implications are profound and troubling. Deepfakes could spread misinformation, damage reputations, manipulate elections, or create convincing evidence of events that never occurred. Imagine seeing video of a world leader declaring war, or a business executive admitting to crimes, video that looks and sounds completely authentic but is entirely fabricated. In an already fractured information environment, deepfakes could shatter remaining trust in digital media. Yet the same technology has legitimate uses. Film studios use it for visual effects. It can restore damaged historical footage or help actors perform dangerous scenes safely. Voice synthesis helps people who've lost their ability to speak communicate in voices that sound like their own. The technology itself is neutral. The question is how we govern its use. Researchers are developing detection methods, looking for subtle artifacts that reveal manipulation, unnatural blinking patterns, inconsistent lighting, or telltale signatures in how the AI generates images. But it's an arms race. As detection methods improve, so do the deepfakes. Some propose digital watermarking for authentic media, creating verifiable chains of custody for images and videos. Others suggest we need to fundamentally rethink how we evaluate evidence and truth in a world where perfect forgeries are possible. The challenge isn't just technical, it's social, legal, and philosophical. AI is becoming an indispensable tool for scientific discovery across disciplines. In astronomy, machine learning algorithms sift through vast amounts of telescope data, identifying planets around distant stars, classifying galaxies, and detecting cosmic phenomena that human astronomers might miss. The Event Horizon Telescope used AI algorithms to help create the first image of a black hole in 2019, processing data from telescopes around the world to construct that iconic picture. In particle physics, AI helps analyze the massive amounts of data from experiments like the Large Hadron Collider. Millions of particle collisions occur every second, and AI systems identify the rare, interesting events that might reveal new physics. In chemistry, AI predicts properties of molecules, designs new materials, and suggests synthetic pathways for creating desired compounds. Materials scientists use machine learning to discover new alloys, superconductors, and battery materials with specific properties. Climate scientists employ AI to improve weather prediction models, analyze satellite imagery tracking environmental changes, and simulate complex climate systems. Ecologists use it to identify species in camera trap photos, monitor wildlife populations, and track biodiversity changes. The scale of data in modern science exceeds human capacity to process. AI has become not just helpful but essential. Perhaps most intriguingly, AI is beginning to generate novel hypotheses. Rather than just analyzing data scientists provide, some systems can propose new experiments, suggest unexpected connections between phenomena, or identify patterns that lead researchers toward new questions. In 2019, an AI system designed a new retrosynthesis route, a method for creating complex molecules from simpler starting materials that chemists hadn't considered. AI isn't replacing scientists, but it's becoming a creative partner in the research process, extending human intuition and opening new avenues of inquiry. AI is transforming accessibility for people with disabilities in profound ways. Computer vision systems can describe visual scenes to blind users, identifying objects, reading text, and recognizing faces in real time through smartphone cameras. Navigation apps use AI to guide blind pedestrians through cities, warning of obstacles and providing detailed environmental information through audio cues. For people who are deaf or hard of hearing, AI provides real-time captioning of speech, making conversations, lectures, and media more accessible. Sign language recognition systems can translate between sign languages and spoken languages, though this remains technically challenging given the complexity and contextual nature of sign languages. Some systems can even detect different regional accents and dialects in sign language, respecting linguistic diversity within deaf communities. As we arrive at the final moments of our Christmas journey, let us gather together the last treasures of tradition, the final stories that remind us why this season continues to captivate hearts across all boundaries of time, culture, and belief. Let us begin with the tradition of ringing bells on Christmas. Church bells have announced Christmas for centuries, but the tradition carries deeper symbolism. In medieval Europe, church bells would ring on Christmas Eve to signal the beginning of the celebration and to call the faithful to midnight mass. Bells were also believed to drive away evil spirits. Their joyous sound was thought to purify the air and protect communities. In many Orthodox Christian traditions, the ringing of bells on Christmas morning is particularly elaborate, with bell ringers performing complex patterns that have been passed down through generations. The American poem I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day, written by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow in 1863 during the Civil War, transformed the bell-ringing tradition into a meditation on peace and hope during times of despair. Consider now the tradition of the Christmas orange in the toe of stockings, which we touched upon earlier, but there's more to this story. During the Great Depression and World War II, when sugar was rationed and treats were scarce, an orange represented an almost unimaginable luxury. For children who had never tasted fresh fruit in winter, that single orange was pure magic. Parents would save for months to afford oranges for their children's stockings. Some families would share a single orange among several children, each savoring their precious segments. Even today, when oranges are abundant and affordable, many families continue the tradition as a deliberate act of remembrance, teaching children about gratitude, sacrifice, and the difference between wants and needs. That simple orange becomes a bridge between generations, carrying stories of harder times and the enduring human capacity for joy in simplicity. Let us speak now of the tradition of Christingle services, particularly popular in the United Kingdom and among Anglican churches worldwide. A Christingle is an orange decorated with a red ribbon, for cocktail sticks holding dried fruit or sweets, and topped with a candle. Each element carries symbolic meaning. The orange represents the world, the red ribbon symbolizes Christ's blood, the 4 sticks represent the 4 seasons or the 4 corners of the earth, the fruits represent God's creations, and the candle represents Christ as the light of the world. The tradition began in Germany in 1747 when a Moravian minister, John de Watteville, gave children candles wrapped in red ribbons. The modern Christingle format was introduced to England in 1968, and today millions of children participate in Christingle services, creating a beautiful, tactile way to understand the Christmas message. As our story continues, let's explore the tradition of the Christmas crib or crèche competition in Provence, France. In this region, creating elaborate nativity scenes is a cherished art form. These scenes, called crèches provençales, feature not just the Holy Family but entire miniature villages populated with santons, small hand-painted clay figurines representing various professions and village characters. The tradition dates back to the French Revolution when churches were closed and families began creating nativity scenes in their homes. Local artisans still hand-make these santons using techniques passed down through families for generations. Some crèches are incredibly elaborate, featuring running water, working mills, and dozens of figures. Markets selling santons, particularly in Marseille, have become Christmas destinations themselves, where collectors search for new figures to add to their family scenes year after year. Consider now the tradition of Feast of the Seven Fishes, or Festa dei Sette Pesci, celebrated by Italian Americans on Christmas Eve. This elaborate meal features 7 different seafood dishes, representing the 7 sacraments or the 7 days of creation. The tradition originates from southern Italy, particularly Sicily, where the Roman Catholic tradition of abstaining from meat on holy days was strictly observed. Families would gather for this marathon meal, which might include dishes like bacala, salted cod, calamari, shrimp, clams, mussels, scallops, and various fish preparations. The meal can last for hours, with each course served deliberately, allowing time for conversation, wine, and the warmth of family connection. While the specific number 7 isn't universally followed, some families serve 9, 11, or 13 dishes. The spirit remains abundance, tradition, and togetherness. Let us turn now to the Catalonian tradition of the Cagana, a unique and somewhat controversial nativity figure. In Catalan nativity scenes, hidden somewhere among the traditional figures, you'll find a small figurine of a person in traditional dress, squatting with their pants down, engaged in the act of defecation. This unusual addition has been part of Catalan nativity traditions since at least the 18th century. The Cagana represents fertility and good fortune. The figure is literally fertilizing the earth, ensuring a prosperous year ahead. Far from being disrespectful, Catalans consider it an essential part of the nativity scene, and the figure has become a point of regional pride. Modern versions sometimes feature celebrities, politicians, or pop culture characters, but the traditional peasant Cagana remains the most popular. As we drift toward our final moments, let's speak of the tradition of the New Year's baby and Father Time. The image of the new year arriving as a baby while the old year departs as an elderly man, Father Time, carrying a scythe and hourglass, has been a common motif since ancient times. The ancient Greeks celebrated Dionysus, their god of wine and fertility, with a baby in a basket representing the rebirth of the year. The Romans celebrated the god Janus, who had 2 faces, one looking backward at the old year, one looking forward to the new. This symbolism merged over centuries, and by the 14th century, Europeans were using the baby old man imagery to represent the year's turning. Today, editorial cartoons, greeting cards, and decorations continue this ancient tradition, reminding us that with each year's end comes the promise of new beginnings. Consider now the tradition of the Ukrainian deduk, a sheaf of wheat or other grain that's brought into the home before Christmas Eve supper. The deduk represents the spirits of ancestors and the importance of family continuity. It's typically placed in the corner of the room where the family gathers, the place of honor. The wheat symbolizes abundance and the staff of life, but also the golden fields of Ukraine. Each stalk of grain represents an ancestor, and the entire sheaf represents the family unity across generations. After the Christmas season, the deduk is traditionally fed to livestock or burned, with the ashes scattered on fields to ensure a good harvest. This beautiful tradition connects past, present, and future, honoring those who came before while blessing the seasons ahead. Let us explore now the tradition of Jólasveina, or the Yule Lads, those 13 mischievous characters from Icelandic folklore. Unlike the singular Santa Claus, Iceland has 13 different gift-bringers who arrive one by one during the 13 nights before Christmas. Each Yule Lad has a distinct personality and name reflecting his particular brand of mischief: spoonlicker, door slammer, sausage swiper, window peeper, and others. Children place a shoe on their windowsill each night, and if they've been good, they receive small gifts. If they've been naughty, they find a rotting potato. Originally depicted as frightening trolls who would steal food and terrorize the countryside, the Yule Lads have been softened over time into more playful figures. They depart one by one after Christmas, with the last leaving on January 6th. This uniquely Icelandic tradition adds variety and anticipation to the entire Christmas season. Finally, as we conclude our journey through 100 Christmas facts, let us reflect on perhaps the most important tradition of all, the act of gathering together. Whether we call it Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, winter solstice, or simply the holiday season, this time of year has always been about community and connection. In the depths of winter's darkness, humans across cultures and throughout history have created reasons to come together, to share light, food, stories, and hope. We decorate trees and homes not just for beauty, but as acts of defiance against winter's bleakness. We give gifts not out of obligation, but as expressions of love and recognition that we are bound to one another. We tell these stories, honor these traditions, and pass them to the next generation because they connect us to something larger than ourselves, to our families, our communities, our history, and our shared humanity. The magic of Christmas isn't found in any single tradition, but in the collective tapestry of all these customs, stories, and celebrations woven together across time and space. From ancient Roman winter festivals to Victorian innovations, from medieval mystery plays to modern light displays, from quiet moments of candlelight to joyous community gatherings, each thread adds richness and meaning to the whole. As we part, remember that you now carry these 100 facts, these 100 threads of tradition, as part of your own Christmas story. Whether you celebrate with a towering tree or a simple candle, with a feast or a humble meal, with crowds or in solitude, you are part of this continuing narrative, this endless, evolving, beautiful story of how humanity brings light to darkness, warmth to cold, and hope to every heart that opens to receive it. May your Christmas be filled with wonder, your new year with hope, and may the spirit of this season, in whatever form speaks to your heart, remain with you always.